If really tightening this, Chase is right now the one that is enforcing this the most. They're not offering you new credit. They're just shuffling your existing credit around to approve you for the card.
They see something they don't like, they're not going to take, a certain type of risk.
They're really clamping down the amount of credit they are putting out there. You mentioned relationship, and
Sure.
I should have added this.
Yeah.
Let's say you're applying for a Citibank card. If you have a Citibank relationship savings account, checking account, it goes a long way. Banks value relationships you have with them in other areas, not just for credit cards. So if you have a mortgage with like I have a mortgage with Bank of America, that's also to your favor. Things of that nature. They want to see that you've had some other relationships with them. This way they can approve you. And if they approve you, at a higher limit as well.
Absolutely. Good. And you know what? I'm glad you brought that up. So now let's talk about this. And because I'm sure this has happened to people before, but obviously they're not next to each other. So they can't ask this question. But, why in your opinion, why do two people with the same credit score get completely different credit limits?
Great question. Here's the thing. You can have a credit score. Let's say my son coming out of college because he was an authorized user on my cards. When he graduated University of Pittsburgh, he had a 750 without having credit on his own, right? Based on my scores. But if you have two people that have, let's say, a 750 credit score, however, one has been working longer, one is making more money, one has a longer credit history, one has a relationship with the bank, that all plays into how much, whether you're going to get approved, and if you are approved, how much of a credit limit you're going to get. Because again, and they've really tightening this. Chase is right now the one that is enforcing this the most.
Mm.
Even a person like me that has all these cards and relationships and whatever, when I applied for a card from Chase last summer, I got the card, but they're moving around credit limits from one card to another, so that technically they're not offering you new credit. They're just shuffling your existing credit around to approve you for the card. So
Mm.
they're really clamping down the amount of credit they are putting out there because they know that a lot of people are digging themselves in a hole and can't dig themselves out of it.
100%. And they got to know the risk that they're taking on, as well too. People again, it's all about that profile. It's all about that income. If they see something they don't like, they're not going to take, a certain type of risk, that's for sure. So, okay, great. And then now here's another thing too, Joe, is what is one credit card strategy that you wish more people knew about? It doesn't necessarily have to be pertaining to American Express, but just credit cards in general.
So I think a good strategy is, it depends on where you're at, right? So if you have people that are just cashback oriented, you can have multiple ecosystems. You could have Chase, Wells, Citibank, their cashback cards, because you're just getting that back, cash back. Some might give you 3% back, some might give you 5% back, some give you 6% on one category. Discover gives you 10% back the first year on their rotating categories, which is huge. But if you're into points and miles and travel and things of that nature, you also want to have be a little bit diverse
Yeah.
and have more than one ecosystem. And the reason I say that is the following: things get devalued. So hotels that, let's say 2 years ago, you could have booked a hotel room using 10,000 points. Right now, that same room is going to cost you 20,000,
Yeah.
right? So if you're stuck in that one system, you have no leverage, you have no play. But if
Mm.
you have, let's say, Chase and you have Amex or you have Citi and so on, you're able to then maneuver and find out the best transfer partners, and you have more flexibility available to you by having multiple systems. I'm not saying get two and three cards in every system,
Yeah. Yeah.
but if you like a certain transfer partner, let's say Capital One, and you do a lot of entertaining and you do a lot of supermarket spend or out dining out, the Saver card is a beast of a card.
Mm.
So that's the one you get. So you try to make sure you stick to what you want. You kind of narrow it down and then apply for the cards in that particular area or category. And so it's okay to have, a card from Amex and a card from Wells or whatever. but it's hard to maintain 3 or 4 in every system because now you're talking, how am I going to juggle it? How am I going
Yeah.
to figure out which one to spend on? How much is it going to cost me in annual fees? I'm going to lose track of when things have to get paid. Those old things that come into play if you're not used to it, especially. So you got to be careful with those pitfalls.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Also, you mentioned the saver card. For those who are newer to credit cards, what who makes that saver card?
Capital One. Now, Capital One is an issuer, a bank that they love people that are new to credit. They love people that might be considered subprime in some
Mm,
cases because their interest rates, what they do is they have the same version of the saver card for good credit and for excellent credit and for fair credit. So if you just think about that, excellent credit will give you the better interest rate, no interest for 15 months on purchases and so on. The one for good credit takes away all those benefits, clubs you over the head at 27% interest. Then the one for fair credit is really cutting you off at the knees at 30% interest, and you get nothing up front. And really, I wouldn't apply for it unless you're
mm,
really desperate to get a card and you want to build a history. I get some people might be lulled into applying for something like that, but I would rather them apply for a secured card that you put the money in and borrow against your own money, and you're not getting clubbed over the head with the interest on it, and
yeah.
you could build your credit report that way as opposed to really getting hit over the head with interest rates.
Yeah. No, 100%. 100%. So now, obviously, there's a lot of ecosystems that people can be a part of, Joe. And, if you could like narrow it down to like maybe two ecosystems, which ones would you recommend for people like just kind of starting their credit card journey?
Starting a credit card journey, and it's going to break down again if you want cash back
Yeah.
or points and miles.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to give you two examples of two systems that can do both really well. Wells Fargo with an active cash card of everything 2% automatically on what you spend, no matter what, 2%. If you add that along with their Wells autograph card, no annual fee, it gives you 3 times or 3% on a lot of categories: dining out, entertainment, transit, travel, and so on. That's a great, Wells has one of the most underrated cashback setups out there with no fees. So you can make a killing. And if you hold the autograph card, you could transfer that into points and use that for transfer partners. The weakness that Wells has is that it doesn't have as many transfer partners as other ecosystems.
Mm,
So I would tell you the second ecosystem would be dependent upon what you use the most. If you fly American Airlines a lot and you're in a hub where American Airlines is the airline out of that airport, for instance, Philadelphia or JFK, I would tell you go with Citi and open up a Citibank card, the Citi Strata Elite, because they're the only ones that transfer to American Airlines.